Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at two holsters, the T-Rex Arms Sidecar and the Tier 1 Concealed Axis Elite. Both are very similar holsters, but are very unique holsters from each other at the same time. And we're going to compare their design, their comfort, their concealment, their performance, and the customer experience when ordering from these companies. So first off, full disclosures, where did I get these holsters? Do I have a relationship with Tier 1 Concealed or T-Rex Arms? No, I got both these holsters with my own money. I spent my own money to get these things. I have no relationship with either company. Everything I buy from that company, I have to buy with my own money, including this shirt and this hat. All right, so when it comes to the design of these holsters, they are very, very similar. They are Kydex holsters that have an attached magazine carrier and a claw and two clips. They could be cousins. However, they are very different in several ways. The first off is the actual design of the Kydex. If you look at the T-Rex Arms holster, it's very plain, it's very simple, it's just a vacuum form around the design of the pistol itself, which this is for a Glock 17 or 19 with a TLR7 HLX. When we look at the Tier 1 Concealed, you have some similarities. It's vacuum formed around the holster itself, but you do have some design accents. You have the T1 here, so it looks a little bit cooler. You also have some additional holes. On the T-Rex Arms, you only have 3 holes here to mount your clips on, and you only have 2 holes to mount your magazine clips on. However, on the Tier 1 Concealed, you actually have a set of 4 holes to mount the clips on, both on the holster itself and on the magazine carrier. On the magazine carrier as well, on the Tier 1 Concealed, you have this enhanced concealment rib or ridge to help push that magazine inward. And when it comes to the magazines, you actually have a different system entirely for how the magazine is attached to the holster. On the Tier 1 Concealed, they use a bungee system, so the holster has flex and it can move. However, it wants to go back to its original position, but when it's in your pants, when it's against your belt, it's going to flex towards your body. On the T-Rex Arms, it has a spine system, similar to like a door hinge, but it's very tight. There's a lot of friction there, so it really only moves when you want it to move, and you can kind of set it in place, and it's only going to move when there's a lot of pressure put against it. So it's a little more stiff and a little less flexible. So something that's unique to the T-Rex Arms Sidecar that the Tier 1 Concealed Axis Elite does not have is a modular system. On the Tier 1 Concealed, you have your magazine carrier, and that's really it. You can remove it, but you can't put anything else there. However, when it comes to T-Rex Arms, you can put a variety of different accessories instead of the magazine holder. You can have a tourniquet holder, you can have a rifle magazine holder, you can have a submachine gun magazine holder, you can have a handcuff holder, you can have a suppressor holder, you can have all sorts of different accessories right here instead of just the magazine. Now for me personally, I'm much more of a fan of having just the magazine there. For me, I want to have my magazine, my gun attached. If I want to carry other accessories like a tourniquet, a suppressor, handcuffs, whatever, I'm going to carry those in my pockets or somewhere else. So for me, I like the magazine carrier, but if you're someone that wants something a little bit different, if you want to carry something a little more unique, like a suppressor holder or a handcuff holder, what have you have that option with the T-Rex Arms, but you don't have that option with the Tier 1 Concealed. So on both the Tier 1 Concealed Axis Elite and the T-Rex Arms Sidecar, you have a adjustable claw system. So on the T-Rex Arms, this piece here can be adjusted for height, and it can be brought in so you have less concealment. It's being pushed out less, pushing the gun less into your body. On the Tier 1 Concealed, this can be adjusted for height here in these slots, and then these pieces here are stackable, so you can have more or less of these pieces. So something you'll notice here, this is an older T-Rex Arms Sidecar. It is a much simpler claw design. On the new sidecar, you have that adjustable claw, but on the old sidecar, you had this one, which could really only be adjusted for how much it pushed out. However, you could not adjust it based on your ride height. So if you want to ride your clip higher or lower, to have your pistol run higher or lower in your belt line, the claw would not actually adjust with it. So now the sidecar is kind of caught up to times with the Tier 1 Concealed, and it has that adjustability that you're going to want if you're going to change your ride height with your clips. So one issue I do have with the T-Rex Arms Sidecar in its design is the fact that it only has 2 holes on the magazine carrier and only 3 holes for the holster itself. Those extra holes in the Tier 1 Concealed really helps with your clip ride height. If you notice here on the T-Rex Arms, these clips are not level with each other. The clip on the magazine carrier is much lower. Now, you might notice that on the spine system here, I can actually adjust the height of the magazine carrier. Now, I prefer to run the magazine carrier lower because I run an extended magazine. When you order from Tier 1 Concealed, you can actually select an extended magazine and they will design the holster for the extended magazine. On T-Rex Arms, it's kind of more user preference after you've purchased everything, which would be a good idea, except these clips aren't level, so when you put it in your pants, it does cant the holster slightly, and you're not going to get that consistent height like you do with the Tier 1 Concealed. So comfort is one thing that's very important when it comes to your concealed carry holster. If it's not comfortable, then you're not going to wear it. You might put it on every now and then, but you're not going to consistently wear it all day long. And that could be a couple hours, or that could be 10, 12, 15 hours. And if it's an uncomfortable holster, it's digging into you, you can't bend over, you can't do certain motions and movements, then you're not going to wear it, and then what's the point of concealed carrying? Now, when it comes to the difference of comfort between these two holsters, I think the Tier 1 concealed is the more comfortable holster. I think the design lends itself to be the holster you're going to want to wear all day long. I think the more boutique way they make it, the fact that it's a little more elegant in its design, leads to it being more comfortable. I think that the fact that the magazine is pushed in as well, I think the way it's rounded and just more thought is taken to it, I think is a little bit better. Because one thing I did notice is the T-Rex arms, when I was doing certain movements and motions, it would tend to dig into me a little bit. As opposed to the Tier 1 concealed, I didn't really have that issue. It did feel a lot more comfortable when bending down, squatting, things like that. Something else with T-Rex arms, I don't like how stiff this system is. I don't mind holsters that are fixed. The old T-Rex arm sidecars that had no flex at all, they were literally fixed in place. However, this is kind of the worst of both worlds for me, because it's not fixed in place, so it will move sometimes, but it won't move enough, so it could move to some awkward, uncomfortable position. There have been some times throughout the day where I've had to manually readjust it to get it where I want, as opposed to the Tier 1 concealed, kind of adjusts itself automatically. So I think comfort-wise, they're pretty close. You can do almost all the same stuff with them, but if I had to pick just on comfort, I would definitely pick the Tier 1 concealed Axis Elite. So when it comes to how well these holsters conceal, when it comes to their concealment, a very important thing, right? What's the biggest thing in concealed carry? Other than carry, it's concealed. So we want to make sure our firearms are concealed when we carry them. We don't want to be telling everyone, hey, I've got a gun in my pants. Now, most holsters are pretty decent at concealing, but I think the T-Rex Arm Sidecar and the Axis Elite are pretty good, both for concealment, but I think the Tier 1 concealed takes the cake just by a little bit. I think there's a couple features the Tier 1 has that makes it better. First off, I think this magazine ridge right here really helps. It pushes that magazine in, so everything kind of gets pushed into your body more. I feel like with the sidecar, while the holster itself might be pushed in, the magazine sometimes tends to push out. And another issue I've noticed with the sidecar is because it has that more stiff spine system, like I said earlier, which affects comfort as well, sometimes this holster will get stuck in a certain position. It might even get stuck in this flat position, and now everything's kind of spilling out, and it's not concealing very well. T-Rex Arms did take a good step by having their new claw system, which allows you to push that claw out a lot further, pushing the gun in a lot more. But I think ultimately, while it is just by a little bit, I think the Tier 1 concealed Axis Elite is the better concealer. All right, so to test the performance of the sidecar versus the Axis Elite, we're doing a series of drills on paper to see how the holsters actually perform. For this, I'll be using my Shadow Systems MR920. It's my everyday EDC. Both holsters are for the exact same gun, so it's going to be very consistent. The only difference is going to be the holster. So for this first performance test, I'm going to be doing a draw to first shot in the A zone of this target, just to see what those times are with the Tier 1 concealed versus the sidecar. .118. 109. 113. 117. 110. 115. All right, so for the next exercise, it's going to be a 1 reload 1 to just see how quickly I can get that reload, as these are sidecar style holsters, so the reload is a component of that holster. 202. 182. 188. 176. 175. 174. To put it all together now, I'm going to be doing a modified bill drill. I'm going to draw, fire 3 rounds into the A zone, reload, fire 3 rounds into the A zone, and see what those times are, get those averages. This way I'm kind of putting it all together, getting that draw to first shot time, see how good that grip is to see if I'm getting a good consistent 3-round grouping, and then see how good that reload is in another 3-round grouping. Alrighty, so that was a total of a 4.20. Let's see, first shot was a 1.29, second was a 2.1, 2.1, 2.05 reload, not bad, not great. Then 2.3, 2.1, 2.1 over 4.20. Alright, so we had the exact same time, 4.20. First shot in a 1.34. First split 2.2, 2.2, 1.96 reload. 2.4, 2.2, so pretty consistent, and total 4.20. Alright, so this one was our fastest run, 3.95. First shot in a 1.24. Our reload was 1.87, and our splits were 2.0 and 2.2, 2.1, so consistent splits throughout. Alright, so that was a 3.95, first shot was a 1.32. 3.95, third shot was a 1.32. 0.25 split. Let's see, 0.24, 0.22, 1.67 reload, which was pretty good. 2.5, 2.5, so a little bit slower actually on the pacing. Alright. So 3.96 first shot in a 1.36, 2.3 split, 2.0 split, 1.67 reload, 2.6 split, 2.4 split, total in that 3.96. Alright, this one was a little bit slower. I fumbled that reload a little bit. First shot was a 1.31. 0.21 split, 0.2 split. Reload was a 2.04, a little bit slower. And then that total for that 4.19. Alright, so when looking at our performance with the T-Rex Arms sidecar, our draw to first shot average when we isolated that skill was a 1.13. Our reload average, a 1 reload 1, was an average of 1.75 when we isolated that. When we put everything together, that's where we saw ourselves slow down just a little bit. When we tend to put a bunch of fundamentals together instead of just isolating them, we do tend to slow down because we have other considerations to make. For instance, with reloads, when I do a 1 reload 1, my grip does not matter. I could have a very terrible grip coming up from that reload. I try not to, but I can, and still get one individual shot on paper in the A zone. However, when it comes to that combined drill where I have to reload and put everything together, then I'm going to see a little bit slower of a number there of a 1.96 because I have to focus on getting another 3 shots in the A zone, not just a singular shot. Our total time there was a 4.11, and our average draw to first shot was a 1.29. Once again, a little bit slower because I wasn't drawing for 1 shot, I was drawing for 3. When we come to look at the Tier 1 concealed target, we notice some similar numbers, but some differences as well. Our draw to first shot was an average 1.14, and we isolated that, almost indistinguishable from the 1.13 of the T-Rex Arms. However, our reload average was a 1.90 when we had a 1.75 on the T-Rex Arm, so a little bit slower on that reload. However, when we look at that overall combined modified bill drill, our time to first shot, once again, very similar, 1.33, 1.29, a little bit slower on the Tier 1, but our overall average speed was a 4.03 as opposed to the 4.11. And our average reload time was a 1.79 as opposed to the 1.96. So why might we have these differences here in terms of the performance? Because one other thing you'll notice is the grouping on my Tier 1 concealed target, other than a couple flyers down here, is a lot more consistent as opposed to the T-Rex Arms target. I feel like it's spread a lot more along the A zone. Everything stayed in the A zone. All these numbers were collected from shots in the A zone, but there is that difference. Well, I think it's because the Tier 1 inherently promotes a better draw on the holster. I think the design of the holster, the way the holster's cut and angled, the way the holster performs with the elastic section between the magazine and the gun versus the rotating spine system of the T-Rex arms, I think it just promotes better performance. I think it promotes better fundamentals. I think I'm getting my grip on the gun more consistently with the Tier 1 as opposed to the T-Rex. I think I get my grip quickly, but I don't get it as consistently. I don't think it builds the same grip with the way I'm drawing from it. And that's not me, I think that's more of the holster itself, because I've set up these holsters to be as identical as possible. I've had a very high ride height, so the holster sits nice and high, so it's clear of the belt line. I have the magazine carrier sitting about the same height on both, so I've tried to make it very consistent. Now, I think the reason when I isolate the reload on the T-Rex, it's definitely faster, is because the Tier 1 concealed has a actual audible click when you put the magazine in, as opposed to the T-Rex arms, it just kind of goes in there with friction. So I think I'm fighting less to get the magazine out on the T-Rex arms. I am fighting a little bit more to get that magazine out on the Tier 1. And because the Tier 1 likes to flex and move on you a little bit more, as opposed to the more rigid stiffness of the spine system on the T-Rex arms, sometimes that magazine will move as you go to draw it, as opposed to that T-Rex, it's going to kind of stay exactly where you had it. But I think that lends to, as we spoke to earlier, better comfort and better concealment. Now, when it comes to the customer experience, I think T-Rex Arms blows every other holster company out of the water. Not only is their ordering process so much better when you're actually selecting your holster, you can actually see your holster being built in real time. They have a 3D image that actually gets modified based on the color, based on the firearm, everything you're selecting, you actually see what it's going to look like. On Tier 1's website, they just have some preset pictures that you can look at of different varieties of colors and holster options and guns and things like that. But T-Rex Arms, you're literally seeing it in real time, so you know exactly what your holster is going to look like. So for whatever reason you think it's too long, too bulky, whatever, you can adjust that there and then, instead of waiting to get it in the mail and then seeing what that holster looks like. The other thing is the lead time of T-Rex Arms versus Tier 1. T-Rex Arms, once again, is far superior. Whenever I order a T-Rex Arms holster, I get it in about a week. Every time I order a Tier 1 holster, I'm waiting a month plus. I don't mind waiting for something, but sometimes when it comes to something like a holster, I want to be carrying that gun here and now. I want to be carrying it right now. And every day I wait, that's another day I could potentially need my firearm, and I'm not carrying it, or I'm not carrying it in the most effective way, and I'm waiting for that holster to come in. So when it comes to not only how you order it, but the speed at which you're getting it, I think T-Rex Arms is definitely the better option. So I've carried either a T-Rex Arms or a Tier 1 concealed holster pretty much primarily for the past couple years. If I've wanted a new holster for a new gun or just a new holster in general, I would look at one of these two companies. These have been the top tier companies for me. However, today, at their current designs, comparing the Sidecar and the Axis Elite, when I figure in design, comfort, concealment, performance, and the customer experience, I think Tier 1 concealed is the way to go. T-Rex Arms does have some advantages, especially in that customer experience, but I think when it comes to performance, when it comes to concealment, when it comes to even just the look, which isn't that important, but it matters a little bit, I think Tier 1 concealed is the better way to go. I think you're going to get more bang for your buck with the Tier 1 concealed. I still think the T-Rex Arms Sidecar is a good option. I think it's the second best sidecar style Kydex holster out there, but I think the Tier 1 is, just like that, a Tier 1 holster. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you like seeing me compare the Axis Elite and the Sidecar, and you like to hear my opinions, my feedback, and my experiences with them, then go ahead and leave a like down below. If you think that Kydex holsters are for losers and I should be carrying a leather holster at the hip, then go ahead and leave a dislike down below. Otherwise guys, head in the comments, what are your experiences with Tier 1 concealed and T-Rex Arms? Is there another holster brand out there that you think is the superior Kydex holster? Let me know in those comments down below. Otherwise guys, I'm releasing new videos every Saturday, so subscribe and stay tuned.